Vice President Pence, thank you for joining us. I want to start with the big Supreme Court decisions, specifically the decision ending affirmative action as we know it. I understand you fully support this decision, but if the end result is that America's most selective colleges and universities have fewer Black and Hispanic students, is that a problem for America?
Well, look, I think I couldn't be more proud of the progress we've made toward a more perfect union in my lifetime. The Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s. And I think there was a time for affirmative action, John, where to open the doors of our colleges and universities to minority students, and particularly African Americans who may have been denied access. But I think those days are over. You know, it was Justice Sandra Day O'Connor who more than 20 years ago said that she thought affirmative action would go away in 25 years. It went away a little sooner than that. And I think that's a tribute to our minority students, the incredible accomplishments of African Americans and Asian Americans in this country, and Hispanic Americans, speaks for itself. And I really believe that the decision by the Supreme Court today was an acknowledgement of the incredible progress that minority Americans have made, their extraordinary educational achievements. And I have every confidence that that African Americans and other minority Americans are going to continue to compete and succeed in universities around the country, but we're going to do it with a colorblind society that I think is the aspiration of every American.
But respectfully, you didn't answer my question. We've seen what has happened in 9 states that have banned affirmative action. We've seen in Michigan and California and Florida that after affirmative action was done away with, the result was that you saw fewer Hispanic and Black students at their elite universities. So again, my question to you, if that is the result here, is that a concern? Is that a concern for you?
I haven't seen your studies. I don't know the numbers. First job I ever had was as an admissions counselor at the college I graduated from. And I'm just very confident with the progress that we have made now in 2023, a fourth of the way through the 21st century, the achievements of African Americans, leaving aside the achievements of the first African American president, and African Americans all across the country. I'm just very confident that African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and other minorities are going to be able to compete and succeed. But we're going to be able to do it with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision in place. It will be judged not by the content, but judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character and by our own academic performance.
So why did the court carve out the military academies? This ruling does not apply to our military academies. As Justice Jackson said, one standard for the boardroom, another standard for the bunker. Doesn't she have a case, a point there?
Well, this probably won't be the first time that I disagree with our newest justice, but John, come on. The American military, and you know, I've got 2 service members in our immediate family. The American military has been an instrument of advancing equality since virtually the founding of this country. I mean, there were African American officers in New England regiments in the Revolutionary War that we'll be celebrating on Independence Day, and the military has opened its door. You know, I celebrate, and I'm proud that we appointed him to the Joint Chiefs. I celebrate our new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the first member to come up through the service ranks as an African-American member of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Colin Powell preceded him, but came essentially from private life after a long career in the military. So I think the military's been a place where the doors have been open for a long time.
But sir,
minorities, and they've distinguished themselves with sacrifices and service for generations. I know they always will.
Totally understand all of what you just said, but this decision does not apply to the military academies. Under this decision, the military academies can still use race as a factor in admissions. Shouldn't, if you agree that this is the way it should be for universities across the country, should it also apply to the military academies? Why the carve-out?
Well, you know, I'd refer your viewers to the decision itself. But I just have to tell you, I'm so pleased to see the Supreme Court so strengthened by three of the conservative justices that we appointed this week live up to, in this case and in other critical cases, a vision for this country that is really grounded in freedom and in the equality of opportunity for every American. So I'm very confident our military is going to continue to distinguish themselves and be that agent of opportunity for Americans of every background that want to put on the uniform of the United States. I respect the decisions that they make.
So let me ask you, you had also said that there is no place for discrimination based on race in the United States. I think everybody would absolutely agree with that. Do you also believe there is no place for discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity?
Well, look, as you know, I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I'll always believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, but the Supreme Court, now the better part of 10 years ago, recognized same-sex marriage. But now in what is a second important case in this area this week, that strong conservative majority also affirmed the right of every American to live, to work, to worship according to the dictates of their conscience. I mean, in the Lori Smith case that the Supreme Court decided today, the court essentially said that Lori Smith, who said that she'd make a website for anybody, all customers were welcome, but that she said she didn't want to be required by the government in Colorado to create a website that violated her deeply held religious beliefs. It was the same in the cake baker case, John, where he said, well, we'll sell a cake to anybody, we'll sell cookies, the bakery's open to anybody, whatever their background, whatever their lifestyle, but he could not be compelled, the court held in that case, he could not be compelled to create a product that violated his conscience. I think it's a real victory for religious liberty and a real victory for the freedom of religion that really is the first freedom in our country.
We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to get to Ukraine. You just met with President Zelensky in Ukraine. President Trump, in a recent interview, said that territorial concessions would be a matter for subject to negotiation. Speaking with Zelensky, did you get the sense that he's ready to consider territorial concessions to Russia to get peace?
John, I believe that America is the leader of the free world. We're the arsenal of democracy. And I went to Ukraine and was privileged to meet with President Zelensky just a few days ago to tell him that the American people are with you. I met with courageous soldiers who, using Javelin missiles that America provided to them, literally turned back Russian tanks in the small town of Moshun. I met with families whose homes had been shelled. I saw the courage and the resolve of the people of Ukraine, and I would tell you that I think it's absolutely essential, and it's in our national interest that we continue to provide Ukraine with the military resources they need to drive the Russian military out of the territory of Ukraine and reclaim their sovereignty. John, I think President Biden has failed miserably to explain our national interest here. He's given these gauzy speeches about democracy, the reason we're there. Look, we're there because it's in our national interest to give the Ukrainian military the ability to rebut and defeat Russian aggression. Because if Russia overran Ukraine, I have no doubt, John, that it wouldn't be too long before they crossed a border where American servicemen and women would be required to go and fight.
But I was asking you about President Trump and his suggestion that there would be territorial concessions. Let me just ask one more question. You said that you know the difference between a genius and a war criminal, referring to Putin. Obviously, it's President Trump who said that the invasion of Ukraine was genius. So are you saying essentially that Donald Trump is an apologist to Putin? Because in the very same sentence you said that there is no room in the Republican Party for apologists to Putin. I mean, you're clearly talking about Donald Trump here, right?
Well, look, and look, others in this Republican primary have said that it was a territorial dispute. And let me be very clear. I do know the difference between a genius and a war criminal. And Vladimir Putin's unconscionable and unprovoked invasion of of Ukraine was an act of naked aggression. And I was literally on the streets of the city where more than 500 civilians were gunned down by the Russian military. I mean, the Russian military's conduct on an ongoing basis is not just it's not just about warfare, it's evil. And I think that's another reason why we must continue to provide the Ukrainian military with what they need. But I want to be clear here. What I heard from President Zelensky and military leaders in the briefing that I received was that there is a great need. They're beginning to make progress on the front lines, John. It was a very wet spring, but now it's dried out. And they said they're making steady progress every day against that huge Russian military. But he said, look, we need the tanks. We need the aircraft. We need more munitions. The Biden administration promised 33 Abrams tanks in January, and now they're telling the Ukrainians they won't be there till September. Several of our NATO allies have said we'll provide F-16s. We've agreed to train the pilots, but they're telling them they won't have them till January. President Biden says we're there as long as it takes. Well, John, I say honestly, it shouldn't take that long. We're the most powerful nation on earth. By providing the Ukrainian military with the support on a more quick basis, I believe they can take the fight to these Russians. They can drive them out, and ultimately, when Ukraine is secure, I believe Europe will be more secure. But I also believe it sends a deafening message to the communist China regime of President Xi that the United States and the West will not tolerate the use of military force to redraw international lines.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, John.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.